experiment time, William. We're peat-free at On Bed Gardens. We don't use any peat and we don't buy any in. Peat bogs, where peat comes from, are essentially the UK's rainforest. It's a huge carbon capture place, and digging them up to burn them or use them in soil is just not sustainable. So we are using today 3 types of growing medium, 4 seedlings, to see which ones are best. Número 1, fertile fiber. Número 2, Dale's foot, wool compost. 3, homemade compost. So I'm going to layer up 3 rows of each compost and then use the same seed for each of those composts to see how they do. Fertile fibres, used in the past and it was quite good. However, use cocoa coir, which is from coconuts and is imported from far away. Then we've got Dale foot, which I love the idea of. It uses waste product wool, bracken and comfrey to make a compost. And then we've got homemade compost. Most gardeners will tell you never to use homemade compost for starting your own seeds, mainly because it's full of microbes and other seeds that can outcompete yours, and it's normally quite heavy. But even still, it's the localist thing we've got and we're going to give it a go. So we've sown our Marvel of 4 Seasons lettuce seeds, all the same, and we're going to come back in 2 weeks and see how they've done. So here we have our compost trials. On the left-hand side, we've got fertile fibres. In the middle, we've got Dale foot compost. And on the right-hand side, we've got our own homemade compost. As you can see, it's really visual. The fertile fibres compost has done really well. I would say, looking at the bases of these, we've got about 100% germination. Every single module has a lettuce seedling growing out of it, which is amazing. In the middle, we've got the Dale foot compost. Now that has only got 3 seedlings and then a really sad one over here coming up, which is about a 20% germination rate, which is very, very low. The great thing about Dale foot, though, is it uses wool, and wool is a kind of waste product at the moment in the UK. A lot of it's been burned. We don't have industry to use it anymore. So it's using good stuff, but the outcome is not so great. And then on the right-hand side, we've got our homegrown compost, homemade, which was finally sieved. However, you can see that there's a lot of lovely lettuce seedlings coming up in it, but there's also a lot of weeds. We've got loads of chickweed and things coming up in there, things that self-seed in our garden. So it's going to cause some confusion when it comes time to planting up your seedlings. You're going to have to pull these out to get your seedlings nice and free from weeds. So in conclusion, the fertile fibres did really well. The seedlings are much bigger than any of the other seedlings in this tray. All of them came up. The downsides are cocoa coir comes from far away if you're in the UK, it's from tropical countries, so it needs to be imported. The way I see it, though, is that you're growing your own vegetables, which is stopping some importation anyway, right? If you grow your own peppers and your own tomatoes, you're stopping those being imported. So I'm going to go with the thumbs up. The Dale foot is quite disappointing. We kind of noticed this last year when we used it for most of our seedlings, that a lot of things didn't come up. I think maybe it's too rich, and so the bags that we have left we'll use to incorporate into potting on and for bigger seedlings. Our homegrown, in a pinch, or if you don't have budget to buy your own seed compost, I think is great. You can easily weed out these things when they're still small, so long as you know what your baby seedlings are supposed to look like. If you really don't want weeds growing in your homegrown compost, what you can do is put it in a big oven-proof dish and bake it in the oven at a high temperature, about 150 degrees for about half an hour. However, I tried that once and you end up killing worms, which is really sad, and lots of bacteria gets killed. So I prefer just to let the weeds come up and pull those out by hand and deal with them later. So there are 3 composts, our 3 peat-free composts most importantly. See how they do for you.
Who would you go for?
I'd go for the old fertile fibres. They're doing brilliantly, better than all of them. Look at that.